Welcome to the Feminine Principle podcast, a journey into the heart of the female psyche. I'm your host, Nicola Lucy, shamanic practitioner who specializes in shadow work for women and founder of the Feminine Principle. Hello, ladies, and welcome to this episode of the Feminine Principle podcast, where today we are exploring the power of yes and no. And so let me ask you, have you ever said yes when you really meant to say no? Or vice versa, said no when really you meant to say yes? How much did that decision cost you, emotionally, mentally, physically, sexually, and financially? You see, we learn how to use these two very powerful words growing up, shaped by those around us, and never really getting to understand the true depths of their meaning. The use of yes and no are rooted in our fundamental need to be loved and accepted. However, they have been so distorted over time, we actually have a pretty fucked up sense of how to use them in a healthy and balanced way. As women, we know this all too well. We blindly accept responsibility when we are already overburdened. We may open our legs to please the other, feeling that it is somehow our duty or the right thing to do. We commit to things we feel are expected of us so we can keep the peace, help others, or be seen in the right light. Or we choose to stay in a relationship when really we want to get the hell out. We often deny ourselves what we really want because we have learned to sacrifice our own needs for others. And we despondently accept the status quo because we feel we have no choice, and we agree because we want to please everyone and don't want to be rejected. And all these decisions are rooted in our conditioning and our distorted sense of responsibility, of what is expected of us without thinking about the consequences or how it will ultimately affect us or those around us in the long run. Growing up, I had a strong sense of saying no, especially around motherhood. Having had a very traumatic entry into the world, then later being left by my biological mother at the age of 2, and knowing the history in my family of mothers leaving their children, the imprint was created. This was further emphasized on the Bridge of Menarche when my parents got divorced, and having to experience life within a single-parent family. I knew I didn't want to have children. However, the more I fought this, the more motherhood came knocking on my door, until one day it was too late. I said no to motherhood, deciding to terminate, and even while I was there waiting to go under, I knew I wanted to say yes, to have the child. But I couldn't say so because I was immobilized through fear, scared I too would have a traumatic birth, and then later abandon my own child, and therefore repeat history. I was also scared because I was afraid of anything happening to my partner that would leave me as a single mum. And I couldn't voice my needs, so I stayed quiet and went ahead. This decision cost me dearly, and it seriously affected my mental and emotional stability and ignited a deterioration in my menstrual health, which led to the diagnosis of PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And all because I said no instead of yes. We can all pinpoint a moment in our lives where our decision to say yes or no when we meant the opposite has had a massive impact on our lives and relationships. How different would your life be if you had only known how to voice your needs through that one simple or not so simple word? Every time we choose to opt for the opposite of what we really mean and want is another day lost to us. And all those days can potentially add up to months, years, even decades of suffering and the suppression of our true nature. We become more attuned to the fear and the emotions that arise with it. The frustration and anger, the resentment and passive aggression, the guilt and the shame, the regret and the loss, the jealousy and the envy, the sadness and the grief. Through my own journey with yes and no, I have come to learn what it means to take responsibility for the decisions we make, to not be defined by them, but to face and own them so we can understand what was behind them and how to ultimately say what we mean. Working with my 9-month clients, we often explore the why behind the yes and no decisions, digging deep into their psyche to unlock the beliefs and the hidden patterns that created their response. Learning to be present in their body, they feel their way through, connecting and engaging with their discomforting emotions so they can explore those deeper truths and unravel the tangled threads that resulted in them saying the opposite of what they meant. In doing so, they are able to find their true north, how that feels and what it triggers in them when they exercise it, so they can remove any blockages that prevent them from voicing the yes or the no that feels right for them, without living in fear of the potential consequences projected onto them by others. Engaging with our true north heightens our intuition and activates our deep sense of trust and responsibility, which are the foundation blocks of our personal power. And being strong and courageous in exploring the hidden threads behind our decisions and speaking them from the heart and not from our conditioning changes the weave and sets a new blueprint for the life and the relationships that we wish to create. Taking ownership of yes and no, we recognize how powerful they are when they are used correctly. We say yes to what we want to experience, overriding the fear with the power of yes, and trusting that while we may not know how or when, we are aligning with our true north and our sacred center. We are now driven by the power this one word asserts that ricochets through the body, opening the heart from its cage of armor and allowing the river of possibility to flow through us. We become invincible, held by a sense of divine wonder that what once felt impossible is now possible. And the same goes for the word no. When we exercise it for the first time, it can feel really scary as we are implementing boundaries around the chaos we have unconsciously created. We say yes to our deeper needs and no to whatever or whoever takes our energy, our joy, and our pleasure. And then life blossoms as we truly become the creators of our reality. We access a deeper sense of understanding and more compassion for the intricately woven threads that create the great tapestry of life, where every decision, every yes and every no are divinely woven and interconnected, with each impacting the other and giving us a wealth of wisdom to help us on our journey back to love, balance, and wholeness. So let me ask you, what has been your experience of yes and no? What stops you from saying yes when you meant no, or vice versa? And what are the hidden threads, the hidden motives behind your decisions? Until next week, and with love. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Feminine Principle podcast, I invite you to join 600 plus women for the Notes from Your Shadow newsletter. Every Saturday, you'll receive wisdom and inspiration to help you fall in love with your shadow and have a deeper, more loving relationship with yourself, others, and Mother Earth.